Video rig. This is my video rig. I use it for performing with my band, mostly. We bring along a video projector when we play, oftentimes. And we need a way that we can put the computer with all the gear that makes the audio come out of the computer and the video come out of the computer. And I put together this rig for not too much money, a little over $300 plus the computer. And I'm gonna give you a little tour, show you how it works. So I use this rig with visibox, which is an application that we developed that you can use for live performance videos. But you could really use it with any VJ software or even, just showing movies if you wanted to. The important part here is the laptop in a case that closes up nicely and it's pretty rugged and ready to go. I don't know if I would use this on an airplane exactly with the stuff coming out the side, but it wouldn't be bad. I'd put probably more fragile things on airplanes in the past. If I had it to do again, I probably would add some ventilation in here. It gets a little warm in here, and there's not a whole lot of way for the heat to get out. So I would probably do that a little bit differently, and I might still drill some holes in the side and maybe add some vents and maybe even a fan. But it doesn't get ridiculously hot. Certainly not hot enough that anything stops working. But so this is a visibox. This is what it looks like. It would look like you could set this up next to maybe you're a drummer and you're triggering from drum pads, or you're a keyboard player and you're triggering from some MIDI pads, or guitar player, bass player, you're triggering from a MIDI foot pedal, and you could just sort of set this up in your peripheral view that you can look down and see your set, and you can see all the videos or other visual elements that you may have available to you, and trigger them. VisiBox works using MIDI. So we've got a USB input here. I kind of wish I had more now. If I built this again, I might put two USB inputs here. You can also just plug in a USB hub, which is a solution that I do if I want to plug in multiple USB things. There's an HDMI output, which is just the computer secondary HDMI output. It connects to the computer. It all connects to the computer through this USB-C connector right here. I've got a right angle plug. I'm going to dig in past all the foam here in a moment, and we'll see what's underneath there. So the HDMI could conceivably mirror the screen, but for VisiBox, it works really well with a two-screen kind of setup, and it works really well with a video projector in particular. So I connect this HDMI to a short throw video projector for our performances, and then we've got what I call the soundman zone. So here we've got left and right outputs of the left and right from the computer. It's running through an audio interface, a pretty minor audio interface inside there. And then we've also got balanced XLR outputs. So a sound guy can just plug in a mic cable, either mono or stereo here. And then probably the most important part is the power jack here. And I got pretty much all of this stuff on Amazon, Amazon components, and I got the box. So let's start from the outside and go in. I bought the box from Harbor Freight. You can buy all sorts of stuff sort of, kind of cheaply made for particularly cheap at Harbor Freight. And this is, a Pelican style case that I got for Harbor Freight. It was about $50. It is kind of cheap as these go. I mean, it's actually pretty good quality plastic, but the foam inside is kind of cheap. A good value for the money, but I mean, if I was doing a lot of touring with this, I would probably build it in like an actual Pelican case. This is a 13-inch MacBook Air. This is the M1 MacBook Air. VisiBox works really well on Apple Silicon. There's a specialized Apple Silicon version, and this is an Apple Silicon. I think it was the first Apple Silicon computer that came out was the MacBook Air. They've recently come out with M2, which should work just as well. Actually, should work even better with VisiBox. This computer, I want to say, was about $900. So if we add the $300, $330 for the case, and the $900 for the computer, about $1,200 for the whole rig. But I can also use this to, shop on Amazon for more gear and use it in my daily life, other than it just being in the rig all the time. As I mentioned, it's all connected. I mean, the thing about the MacBook Air is all it has is two USB-C connectors on the side here. I guess on the other side, it also has a headphone jack. I'm not using the headphone jack, and the reason that I'm not using the headphone jack is a couple of reasons. Partly to just keep it all cleaner, to be able to kind of control the quality of the audio interface that I have in there, which, again, spoiler, not a great audio interface, but that's just fine. By not using the headphone jack, I get a secondary audio interface. And a good trick with VisiBox is to leave the internal computer audio for system alerts and stuff like that, and then set VisiBox's output to your audio interface. That way, if you get a message or something like that happens while you're in the middle of a performance, it won't go blaring out over the sound system. You'll probably want to go into do not disturb mode on your computer while you're performing, but in case you forget, it's nice to have the knowledge that that audio is going to a separate audio interface. Let's close up the computer, set it aside, and I'll show you what's in the box here. We have what is called an IEC cable. The British people tend to call this a kettle plug because it's shaped like an electric kettle is shaped if you are in a country that drinks a lot of tea, which in America we are not particularly in a country that drinks a lot of tea, but oftentimes this is called a kettle plug or an IEC plug, and that's what this jack is here. This is a common, this is an Anker brand USB hub that I can plug into my USB there. And now I can plug in more than one device if I wanted to, for instance, plug in a USB camera, a webcam, for VisiBox to show on the screen behind me, and also a pedal to trigger everything. I get that too. But it still would be nice to maybe have this inside, and if I did it again, I might put more USB plugs on the side here. I've also got a backup sort of minimalist version of this rig with just a HDMI jack on a USB-C with the right angle to kind of give a backup in case something in here goes wrong. At least I'll be able to just plug this into the MacBook and finish the performance in case there's a problem. One of the nice things, particularly if you're thinking about using a non-laptop computer for your performance, I would advise against it. And the reason is there's a lot that can go weird on stage, including, but not limited to, losing power on stage. And if your computer loses power, it is particularly nice if it can fall back to battery power and not restart in the middle of your set. So laptops are the way to go on stage. If you were thinking like, oh, it'd be great to put together like a Mac mini rig, you probably want to do some kind of a uninterruptible power source, UPS. We call them UPSs, basically battery backup. As I mentioned, kind of cheap foam here that's all falling apart, truly rock and roll. Let's kind of dig through it, and I'll show you what's here. So inside here, we have a USB-C hub. I guess we call this a hub. It doesn't have just USB ports on it, but this one also has, on the end here, it's got HDMI, and it's got USB, 2 USBs on it. So we've got a USB-C. This is a separate USB-C right angle plug that I bought because it sits nicely and I don't have anything sticking out or bending awkwardly. I put tape around it to make it road ready, and it's connected to this USB-C hub. This one is made by a company called VAVA. I guess that's what the company's called. I don't know. There's about 1,000 of these things on Amazon. And I will tell you, try a couple and actually connect it to your video projector, because I have found not all USB-C to HDMI or USB-C hub to HDMI connectors are created equal. I mean, they all do it, but sometimes it's incompatible, and I've found some incompatibilities, and that's how I ended up with this VAVA hub, which is connected. It has a power input here. It also has a power input jack on the side of it. It's a USB-C DC in, it says next to it, so it's a power input jack. And I have it connected through this teeny little high wattage USB-C cable to carry enough to power the computer, and it's connected just to power brick that came with the MacBook Air. So MacBook Air connected to, okay, let's take a look at what this is. So on this side, it's the IEC gets plugged in there. And on this side, it's your conventional North American power jack. And so I can plug this into the power jack here, and off we go. So yeah, so that's that side of things. Let's first look at the audio here. So what I have here is a very simple Ugreen. I want to say this was like $15. Again, we'll put a listing underneath the video of the equipment that we found that most simulated this. Like I said, Amazon kind of cycles through stuff. Some of this stuff might not be made anymore, but we'll put a link to similar kinds of stuff. This has a microphone input, which we're not using here, and then a simple audio output. And it works great, works fine. And I just have a 1/8" stereo plug plugged in here. And then in VisiBox, I set this as the output, the Ugreen USB output is the output for VisiBox. And then the audio through this another, basically we've got a 1/8" stereo on both sides, and then it plugs into this. So this is the heart of the audio side of this. This sort of turns our super cheap audio output into a more rugged, more expensive audio output. This is actually a pretty expensive DI box. This is the Radial Pro AV2 multimedia DI box, and it takes a lot of different types of inputs and outputs them in a bunch of different ways. Basically, if you're using a computer on stage, you need one of these, in my opinion. And again, so we're taking the 1/8 out stereo from our cheap audio interface, and that goes as an input here. We could also take RCA inputs here, but it's got things like a ground lift and a pad, so if the audio was too loud, if it was distorting, you could pad it. And then it's got outputs for mic level, 600 ohm DI style outputs, what sound guys like, and sound women for that matter. And it's got a ground lift here too. So if you're getting a hum in the system, that'll help with that. And I think that it's all isolated, and basically it makes things nice. And what I've got here is it's just a female XLR on this side and a male XLR on this side, and Yeah, these are called panel mount jacks because they mount on a panel, similar to this side panel of this box here. And this is just an XLR to XLR, what's called a feed-through jack. And it's got an XLR female on this side and XLR male on this side. And I drilled them exactly the right size so that we could plug this DI box in and it'll line up perfectly with them and click in. And now that DI box is not going anywhere. There's also on this side the 1/4-inch cables, which just go in parallel to the 1/8-inch input here. So the 1/8-inch input is basically just mirrored straight through without going through the DI box to these 1/4-inch jacks on the side here. And a nice thing about these 1/4-inch jacks too is they're locking, so things won't pull out. I also put just a drawer pull. I bought a drawer pull. I found one that was the right size online and put that here after we played one show, and the HDMI, somebody had bumped up against it and it basically broke off the HDMI. So this provides a little bit of protection. And that's it. That's the box. Setting up at a gig is super easy. It's just a matter of opening up the box, and opening up the computer, and we're good to go pretty quickly. The sound people like it. We like it. The video projector that we have, I'll give you a tour of the video projector at some point, but it's a short throw video projector. It's an Epson, so it's got keystoning on all 4 corners, so we can kind of set it up really anywhere that we can get to on stage and kind of mangle the video so that it's mostly square on the screen and get off and running, even though there's only, oftentimes 20 minutes to turn over bands between sets. We're able to use this rig, and it works nice. Yeah. So if you've got thoughts or questions, feel free to post in the comments. And of course, if you're interested in stuff like this, we're interested in stuff like this with Spaceage and VisiBox. You should subscribe to the Spaceage channel on YouTube. Hit the bell icon and we'll notify you when new videos come out. And we've got videos already up to show you how to use VisiBox in depth. If that's something you're interested in, there's a 14-day free trial. You can download VisiBox and test it out for yourself. Of course, you don't need a box that is as fancy as this rig in order to use VisiBox. You could pretty much just plug in an HDMI dongle like this one to the side of your computer. Assuming that it's a Mac. Maybe, if you've got a Mac that already has a USB jack on it, or Windows. VisiBox works on Windows as well. And then you can connect your HDMI to video projector and rock out. Rock people's eyeballs out of their head. You can blow people's minds with your video prowess. You can make eyeballs melt with your video amazingness. You can shoot videos on your phone of weird stuff and put it up behind your performance because you are awesome and people should see your stuff because you should be as creative as you want to be because you are awesome. And yeah, that's, how I see it at least. Anyways, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more VisiBox awesomeness.